Hi everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ask the Experts. Today we're going to be covering the Fire Safety England regulations, specifically around the recent updates to the fire door guidance. I'm with Stu. Hi Stu.
Hello everyone, I'm Stewart Kerr, I'm a Principal Consultant at Pennington Choices, and we've got Letrice, who is the Head of Knowledge and Insight. And we're talking about fire doors because recently, since the Fire Safety England regulations came out, there's been a lot of confusion, there's been a lot of issues surrounding about compliant fire doors, competencies and so forth. So this information that was released by the government on the 8th of August has sought to clarify those situations, so we thought it was a good opportunity for us to reach out to everyone and just make it a bit clearer what those clarifications are.
Yeah. It's probably worth giving a bit of an overview of what the regulations are and where they've come about. So as a result of the Grenfell Tower fire tragedy, this is a piece of legislation that's come about and was actually enforced back in January 2023. So they've been around for some time. As Stu said, there's been some issues where responsible persons have needed some clarification. So we'll get into some of the detail and let you know what those changes are. I don't know, Stu, is it worth you kicking off a bit more around what buildings are actually covered?
So the Fire Safety England regulations that came out, they put certain obligations on responsible persons in buildings that were 11 metres or more, or were 5 stories or more. So any buildings that were below 11 metres or 4 stories, this didn't cover. But for those that were above, it meant that responsible persons needed to carry out an inspection of their communal doors every 3 months and an inspection of their flat entrance doors every year. And that inspection was meant to make sure that doors were going to fundamentally do what they are expected to do in an emergency fire situation, and that is to provide that compartmentation between one compartment and the other, so the passage of fire and smoke was held back so that people on the escape routes who were trying to evacuate the building could do so safely without it being an untenable situation. But the way that it's evolved and the way that it's the way that people have been looking to carry these out and the competencies of people to get in to do these kind of checks has caused a lot of issues, because when the organisations have said, well, what competency do we have, they've gone to third-party contractors to look to get these done as a proper fire door inspection. And unfortunately, because of they're looking at the nth degree of what is a compliant fire door, it's meant that a lot of doors now come in with huge amounts of repairs. Whole buildings are having their doors written off and so forth. And this is causing large problems for building owners and responsible persons, because now they've got all of these doors, and some of them are not even that old. And are installed and they've got all the right plugs and everything like that, but they're suddenly non-compliant. So they're left with this very big problem. So this is where this piece of guidance has come to clarify that.
It's probably worth saying as well, when the original guidance was issued, when these regulations first came into effect, that actually the requirement was that you didn't need to go out and find a contractor to do this. This could be something that could be done in-house. And there was a bit of a guide in terms of what you should be checking on those fire doors. But maybe we should cover now what the guidance has clarified, what those checks should be.
The guidance came out and it exactly said that. You do not need to get a fundamentally super qualified person to be carrying out your fire door checks. It is pretty much a functional test to make sure that your fire door will do what you would expect it to do, that it is visually free of damage and there are no obvious things that are going to really stop that door functioning as a fire door in an emergency situation. And if there are small elements, such as there's a smoke seal missing, or there's a gap that's about 5 mil and not 4 mil, that fundamentally doesn't mean that door will not work in a fire situation. And that's what this guidance has actually looked to bring about, is the fact that caretakers can undertake these, housing officers can undertake these. And I think what they're looking for in terms of when they talk about competency is that little bit of training. It doesn't need to be someone put through a whole host of training on installing fire doors and maintaining fire doors and repairing fire doors even. It is someone who can fundamentally look at that door and just say, right, fits in its frame, it's clear from obvious damage, There is nothing hanging off. There are no big holes in it. The strips and seals are all the way around, or it's got a strip seal missing. Essentially, that door is going to work. I'm not going to expect it to allow lots of smoke or fire to pass from one compartment to the other without that fire door being there. So that is essentially what this guidance clears up, and it's very important that organisations know that and don't feel so obliged in future to maybe having these inspections carried out by ultra qualified persons. Only where the situation arises would you need to be thinking about that, where you've got lots and lots of doors that are coming back and saying we need to carry out lots and lots of repairs. So yeah, that is essentially what the guidance is calling for.
Yeah. And I think originally there was also a supporting checklist that I think organisations could refer to. Again, that was issued with the guidance. Has that been updated, you know, and what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's not been updated because it hasn't needed to change in that fact, because the guidance fundamentally has stayed the same. I keep saying fundamentally a lot, but it is the same from when it was first released. It is just about clarifying what that means for an organisation. As I say, a lot of organisations have looked at it, and particularly with such an onus around competency in the new sorts of world that we live in with fire, means that they're looking for that top tier, that nth degree. But what is good about this guidance that has been released is that you don't need to look at that. You need a person who is going to be able to competently look at that door and say that functionally, visually, it is absolutely fine to do what it is expected to do. They don't need to be there looking to see it is a truly certified door. They don't need to see all those certificates, installation things like that. That's not what it is about. It goes beyond what is the requirements of the check. So the checklist, the guidance, is still the same. It's just clarifying what is that person that can do it and can't do it.
I think it also goes back to organisations having their wider fire safety policy in place. They might have a fire safety management plan, and just making sure that that's robust and up to date, so that it identifies, well, who have you said that's going to be responsible for doing these checks? How have you ensured that, yes, they are able to take these to do these checks? How have you satisfied yourself that they've got the level of understanding of the guidance to be able to undertake them in a reasonable way?
Absolutely. And it's just saying on that as well, this is not requiring lots of specialist equipment to do it. It is a visual inspection. That is the requirement, a visual inspection to check that door over. But you do need to make sure that the person doing it has got some understanding of what a fire door is. It is not now organisations sitting around and going, well, the caretaker can do it, the housing officer can do it, and off you pop. That's not what the guidance is saying. But it does say that you do not need to have professionally qualified persons to undertake it.
And I think that's an important point as well, because organisations should have a fire risk assessment regime in place, and as part of that, your fire risk assessor should be looking at your fire doors as part of the checks on the building. So again, that will be another fall safe for capturing anything that's beyond that visual inspection. You would expect that to pick up things as well. So it's just that constant review of, are these fire doors appropriate? Are they doing what they should do? Ultimately, you know, the aim is to keep your residents safe, and that's one way of being able to do that. And
absolutely, and bringing the residents into this, don't forget that these checks are done at a point in time. They are just merely a snapshot at that quarterly for your communal or annually for your flat entrance. Now, you need to make sure that you've still got that strong resident engagement, because they need to be able to report when they feel that either their front door to their home or the communal doors are damaged in any way, because you may not have somebody on site in between those inspection periods. So you need to make sure that there are still mechanisms in place for reporting when fire safety, active or passive fire protection within a building has been compromised or is looking like it is, because that could lead on to requiring a sooner than expected fire door inspection regime, or it may require a repair, or it may require that you actually do need to get those qualified persons out. All of these things need to be in place so that you have a robust structure and framework for your fire safety within your building.
Yeah. There's a couple of things to touch on there. So one is, if there are works that come out of a fire door inspection programme, you know, the follow-up works, how you manage that, so we can maybe cover that in a minute. But going back to residents, the other key thing is the communal door checks, access is unlikely to be an issue because they're in the common parts. But for the annual flat door inspections, tenant access is going to be, it can be present issues. So any pointers around that?
It certainly can. So, I mean, obviously there are certain restrictions around how building owners can access properties, particularly where there are leaseholders or part shared ownership and so forth, because they're slightly different. But it's all about engaging with your residents. The purpose of the flat entrance door check is not for you to start invading their privacy. It is to inspect their fire door so that it is checked to know that it is a functional fire door, because that fire door forms part of the protection of the whole building. It is not there just for the person's flat. It's obviously there for some element of that, but if it forms part of the escape route and that's how people are going to be travelling, you want to be making sure that that fire door is functional. So speaking to residents, having that resident engagement, I know that some can be obviously a lot more difficult to engage with than others, but there is always a ways and a mean, and if they understand what the purpose of the fire door check is, the majority will understand that and allow you for access. Yeah. I know that there is now enforcement going on for certain aspects, which is unfortunate, but that is very, very minimal. In the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think data comes into this, doesn't it, in terms of documenting your access attempts and making sure that you've got a record of what you've tried to do to gain access. I think that's as far as the regulations sort of take it.
I think it is about best endeavours, absolutely. So any organisation needs to document how they have got best endeavours for access into their into properties, so that they can reference that back if they need to. For any particular reason.
I think the other aspect of residents as well is the Fire Safety England regulations specify on all buildings with more than 2 or more residential units that you have to give residents prescribed information, and specifically around fire doors and what they must do. So if they see that the fire door is damaged, they have a responsibility to report that to their landlord, and they have a responsibility to make sure that the fire doors are kept as they should be. So I think it's important to also for landlords to make sure that they keep up to date with the information that they have to give to residents in line with their legal duties as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It is prescribed information, as you said, and it is important. And it also has to be relayed in a way that the resident can understand as well. And that is a lot about your resident discovery, is making sure that what you present them is not overly technical jargon that they don't understand. Yeah. Pictorial messages work way better than a lot of narrative does a lot of the time, because you can relate it directly to what it is you're looking at or pointing out. So like a hinge, a smoke seal. Smoke seal to most people will not be something that they've ever come across or understand. So having those pictorial side of things as well will greatly benefit any information you send out to residents.
Yeah. So can we touch back on follow-up works then?
Yes.
Because, so let's say you've got a caretaker in place, they go out, they do their visual inspection, they record it, and they go, actually, something doesn't look right. What are the sort of courses of action? What should they do with that information?
So when you got that information, it depends on the urgency of what has happened. If it is a fully compromised door at that point, obviously the organisation needs to step in quickly and sort that out, mitigating the risk, however that might be. That might not be that they can replace the fire door at that given time. It might actually mean something else. There's lots and lots of other things, temporary fire alarms, wake-in watch and things in the extreme measures, but there's lots of other things that can be done to make sure that that door, whilst compromised and compromising the escape route potentially or the compartmentation, that you could do other things to mitigate the risk whilst you have the door replaced. But if it is simple things, you can get companies that are trained in doing repairs in fire doors. I know that BM Charter, for instance, do things which are called ARTs, which are approved repair techniques, and they can do those to both certified and non-certified doors. Although you will not get a certified door at the end of it, you can still get an approved repair technique that will enhance the fire door that is there already. And then otherwise it is about getting a competent person to undertake those works to get that door, whether it is that partial repair that is required just to bring it back up to where it needs to be, or the full door set replacement with a fully certified installation set. So thank you for listening to our podcast today around the new guidance that's been released around the fire doors. I think there's always 3 things that we'd like to take away from anything like this, and I think the main thing is that no, you do not need to employ qualified professionals to carry out your fire door checks. That's very important. It is a visual check that you do not need to have equipment necessarily for to carry out fire door checks within your communal or your flat entrance doors. And
I would say communication with residents is key, so making sure they know when you're coming to do the check, making sure that you issue the prescribed information that you have to by the regulations, and just generally keeping them informed, because ultimately it's where they live. So yeah, I think that's it.
brilliant. Thanks, Letrice.
Thanks, Stu.
Thank you for joining us today. If you would like to speak to one of our in-house experts, please get in touch either via our website or across our social media pages. Pennington Choices, providing property surveying, consultancy and project management services to organisations nationwide. Our expertise, your solution.